Hello and welcome to our Columbia Midtown and Sumter SDA Church Leadership Development course presented by myself, Pastor Eli Rojas Jr. Today is our first class, and we're going to be going through the introduction to Christian leadership. So we're going to be talking about 7 topics. First today is understanding Christian leadership. Next time, our next class will be discussing mission. What is mission? What is vision? That will be our third class. And then we'll go into theory and practice. How do we practice? How do we take information and put it to use? The fifth series will be on training, developing people, and elevating ourselves. Because my doctorate specifically is focused on burnout, I wanted to take an opportunity to talk about avoiding burnout. And then the last topic will be on reflecting. As we're learning, as we're going through this, how do we also evaluate ourselves and look at what we're doing and ask ourselves sometimes tough questions about, is this a good idea? Maybe it is. Is it working? Maybe it's not. And see, how do we evaluate the process and adjust as we're going through. So welcome and thank you for joining us, participating. I have our syllabus as well, and there is some recommended reading. So these are books that I used as part of the material for creating this course. And one, just spiritual leadership. I have it right here next to me. Spiritual Leadership by Henry and Richard Blackaby is a 370-page book. Each of these books are a little thick, a little heavy, and it may not be. It may be a little dense to kind of get through it, but these are very powerful books on the different topics that we're discussing. So Spiritual Leadership is the pinnacle leadership book for Christian leadership. I think I've gone through my undergraduate, my graduate, my postgraduate, and I think I've had to read the book 4 times because in many different topics, in many different ways, this book is brought up because it's such a strong case for what spiritual leadership is. My favorite of this is Servants and Friends. I would recommend Servants and Friends to everyone because it goes through systematically and discusses what leadership is in the Old Testament, what leadership is in the New Testament. They do very in-depth studies to look at what is godly leadership. But I would say all of these are very powerful, and I would recommend all of them. Every week we will have homework, but the homework will be included. And if you are watching this post, our time together, and you would like the homework, you can email me at erojas@carolinasda.org, and I'll be happy to send you the material for the homework. That way you can read, and the homework will not be as extensive. So when my dad was in seminary, the professor would turn as they were leaving, say, I changed my mind. For Monday, can you guys read the entire 400-page book and give me a 20-page report? And between Friday and Monday, they had to drop all they were doing, take all their plans. And so homework for me is how can I make what I talked about a little more practical, a little deeper. So I'm not trying to send you all home with reading 400 pages or anything. Most of the time it will just be one article and maybe an assessment, something that you can learn, that you can do so that you can learn a little better about Christian leadership. But the big question we have is, what is the difference between leadership and Christian leadership? That is a small word, but a big difference. And so we're going to look at leadership to begin with. Um, and I'm going to give you all some of my definitions, and I'm going to give you all some clinical definitions because you might not always be reading a book that uses the right definition, Pastor Eli's definition. You might be using a book that uses the general definition, but um, what I would say leadership is to guide, influence, and inspire others to achieve a shared goal. It used to be, you know, being responsible, taking the charge. But what we're starting to see is that there's different kinds of leadership. So a leader doesn't necessarily have to be in the front of the group leading the charge. They don't have to be the first. They don't have to be the most responsible. A lot of times, the leader in the group is not the most important person in the group because even though the person, like let's say in a company, you might have the CEO who's in charge of the company, but then you have someone else who is in the company who has a greater influence, and they're the leaders because they have a stronger influence over the rest of the people. So even though you may have someone who has more authority, a lot of times you'll see that the people with the most authority don't always have the most leadership within an organization. So leadership is to guide, influence, and inspire others to achieve a shared goal. Followers are those who support the achievement of the shared goal. Not lesser, not different. It's just followers are the people who work together to achieve that shared goal. So this is where we might see a little different. So vision is kind of a lot of I think people might switch out the definitions for mission and vision. The way I'm describing vision, vision is kind of the idea, the big concept of how things are going to work out. How are you going to make things go? How do the pieces fit together? The big picture of what you want to achieve. So a lot of people say, vision is to look into the future and say, where do I want to be in 5 years? That's the vision. That's the concept of what you want to do. And then the mission would be, how do I achieve that? So if I said in 5 years, I want to be the president of the United States, then the vision would be the president of the United States. The mission would be, how do I accomplish that? So I would have to say, my vision is to be the president of the United States. My mission would be to knock on every door and get 1,000 signatures and or something like that. But it would be the idea of, this is the big picture of where I want to get to. The mission is, how do I accomplish that vision? So I would say the mission is our shared goal, is what we're doing together. So I would say, okay, my vision for the church or my vision for our group would be to become a leader in our community. So that's a big idea, but then we get together and say, all right, our mission is to make disciples. Our mission is to do this. This is what we've come together and decided, this is what we're going to do together. The strategy is a plan to achieve the mission. So now that we have our shared goal, we've decided that as a group we're going to do A. So then the strategy would be, okay, so then you can go do this, and then the first step is here, the second step is here. Objectives would be smaller goals within the mission. So if my mission is to grow the church, an objective may be to improve men's ministry, with the idea that by improving men's ministry, I'm going to help the church grow. The objective would be to fix the plumbing in the church, because by fixing the plumbing in the church, we would accomplish our greater mission of growing the church. Because how can you grow the church if you don't have the right facilities to take everyone in? So our objectives, our strategies, our plan, our objectives are smaller goals that we're doing within the greater goal of achieving the mission. So then we have our core values. Our core values are kind of keeps us in the greater purpose beyond our mission. So, a lot of the times the idea is there anything that is greater than the mission? Well, yeah. So we could say, all right, our goal is to grow the church, but then our core values would be to do things in a biblical way. Because I could grow the church by just turning it into a sports bar. That would get lots of people to come to the building, but it would defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do, because we don't want to just grow the church. We want to grow the church and maintain our core values of biblical, of godly, of spiritual things. So our core values kind of help us to know, okay, we're doing the mission, but not at this cost. We won't throw these things out. Action plans are kind of the same as a strategy, is very close. They're the specific implementation plans of how you will achieve the objective. So maybe the strategy is for the mission, the action plan is for the objectives, and the management is the accountability. How do we work together managing our resources, managing our attention, our focus, making sure that everything stays in line so that we can achieve the mission. So those are some of the definitions. I think this is kind of how a lot of us would talk about leadership, where you have this idea, well, leader is to go by example, but actually when you look at what leadership is, both of those are leaders. It's just a different definition. So you say, well, the boss is the one who tells you what to do and sits behind the desk. That's a kind of leadership. The leader is the one who goes in front. Well, that's a kind of leadership. But both of those are styles. They're not necessarily good or bad. It really depends on what the mission is, how the mission comes together. So this is a little bit, you can unmute yourself and respond. What would you say are your top characteristics? Just give me one out of all of these that makes a great leader. That this is what, if you want to be a great leader, then you gotta have this qualification. Any thoughts or comments? You can unmute yourself and let me know.
Okay, I'll do it. Go ahead, Sister Omega.
I was going to say, I think you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable.
Accountability.
Yeah.
That's an important one, because, good or bad, if you're not accountable, that's a dangerous quality in a leader, to say, you got to accept everything I do and don't ever call me to question for any of my actions. You should be responsible, accountable. So definitely, Sister Jeanette?
I think being wise is one as well.
Wise is good.
Wise, positive.
Positive, yeah.
Empowering.
That's very good. Empowering. You want, so I can't help but go into sports. You got players who are talented, but who don't make anyone better around them. And then you have players who, when they join a team, maybe they're not the most talented, but they elevate all the other players around them. So More often, it's not so much the talent as it is the empowering player that is the most achieving, that accomplishes the most. Sister D.
I would think clear communication would be very big.
Oh, wow. And that's one of the ones that maybe is um, underrated, but that makes such a big difference.
Mhm.
When you're working with the team, having good communication, knowing what's going on, how things work together, um, that is often way more important than decision making. It's very easy to make decisions, but for a leader to communicate well can make so much of a difference when you're working with other people, knowing and understanding one another, and having that. It takes it away from being you do to let's work together, let's cooperate. So clear communication is a very, very important one.
I think thoughtfulness and integrity should be at the top of the list.
Thoughtfulness, that's good, very good, very good.
And
Integrity,
integrity.
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead.
courageous.
Courageous, that's a powerful one. I think that's one of the characteristics of those leaders that we'd like to talk about in those historic moments. Abraham Lincoln and those generals and people that in their moment of challenge stand up and don't shy away from the fight that they have before them. Because there is a sense of, mission leadership, it kind of has a battle element. There is things that are complicating your work, and if you're not courageous, it really makes it hard to lead and to be strong and to accomplish those goals. I'm surprised no one said charisma. So charisma is one of those
Inclusive.
that I think people won't identify, but we look for in our leaders, don't we?
Pastor Eli,
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want them to be boring and
Monotone.
monotoned. Yeah.
Mm,
You want
I
them
hear
to be also you want them to be inclusive.
inclusive. That's when yeah, exactly. I don't think I put that on the list, but that's a very important one.
what about adaptability?
Adaptability.
Because
I
I think
think that's important because, I think a lot of plans fail because the leader is not willing. It's like, well, this is what we decided we were going to do. It's like, well, that was good, but then the circumstances changed, and you have to be able to shift. You have to be able to move and adapt.
right for a leader, he should be able to change, uh, become adaptable to lead wherever it takes him positively.
Very good point. Well, that's
People under pressure is a good one too.
definitely, definitely. Well, I think I kind of did put the better ones on there. I missed inclusive, which is very important because how can you lead a team and you do it by yourself? Then you're going to be struggling in a lot of different ways. A good leader includes people and leads them in that way. So um, these are very good. But it kind of, like I said, there's different styles of leadership. So you have the leader who is what is called authoritative, which is basically they're the ones who decide and everyone else does what they tell them to do. So if you're the leader, it's like, hey, I don't have time to discuss this. I don't have time to debate. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you either do it or you don't. But this is not going to be a discussion. You're either helping or you're not, and I'm the one that makes the decision. Those are unpopular until they get results, until they start to say, okay, well, actually, they're a little authoritative, but they're producing, they're accomplishing their goal. and I think when you look at that, the question is, what is the purpose of the leader? If the purpose of the leader is to accomplish the goal, authoritative leaders do it very well because they're not wasting time or energy. They're just saying, okay, this is what we got to do. This is what you're going to do. And this is what we have to do to get it done. So authoritative leaders are leaders that put the result over the process. You wanted me to get everyone on the boat. I got everyone on the boat. Just because I set the dock on fire doesn't mean that I'm a bad leader, because everyone who was on the dock got in the boat and they did it quickly, and we're off. We're on the boat. So don't question my methods. As long as my results speak for themselves, I can lead in whatever way I want to. Democratic leaders, it can be a little tedious. Like, well, I want everyone to be involved. I want everyone to be included, and sometimes that can be complicated. There's too many chefs, not enough servers, or not enough preparers. What the other one? Too many chiefs, not enough followers. So it can be difficult to be democratic, but the idea of including and so that kind of makes it more about the team and less about the result. Laissez-faire, I rhymed with it, but laissez-faire, they don't care, is more of a delegating. It's like, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to give you any instruction. You do it how you see fit, which can be good in the sense that you're allowing people freedom to do things as they would like to do it. So you can be laissez-faire, and as long as things are going in the right direction, it feels very comfortable for the group, because they're not having to worry about fitting into other people's way of thinking. They can kind of just do it the way they like to, and as long as everyone's going in the same direction, it's a really comfortable way of leading. Transactional, that kind of sounds bad. It's like, well, you do for me and I'll do for you, but it's that idea of we're producing. So I'm giving you something, and in order for you to get what I'm giving you, you have to give me. And so there's a sense of transaction of I'm doing this for you, you're doing this for me, and that's how we work together. And it kind of allows, it speaks more to the motivation. How can I get people to work and do what I want them to do? I'm going to give them something to motivate them. So I want you to produce something. You want me to motivate you. So I'm going to give you something to motivate you in order for you to produce something that I want. That idea of I'm not just we're not sharing and we're not growing. It's about, I want this from you, and this is what I'll give you in order to get that from you. Not exactly bad. I think transactional leadership is good in job settings. Hey, I'll work harder if I get a bonus. I'll work harder if there's incentives. If you want me to do more for you, then I need you to give me more. So transactional leaders are good when it comes to jobs and to those kinds of environments. Transformational leaders are important. Those are I think those are one of the biblical models for leadership, because a transformational leader is not just focused on accomplishing the goal. That's what we call the empowering leader. It's like, I don't want to just get this done. I want to improve you, and I want to make you a better worker so that it will be, I'm not just worried about the mission. My mission is to make you better. So their focus is improving their followers. They're training, they're helping, they're building relationships with people, and their focus is to improve them. Visionary is someone who's very dreamer. Is all about the plan, about the the concept. They're the ones that kind of help people think outside of their box. It's not just about what we're doing, but what could we be doing? How can we go further? How can we go bigger? How can we achieve more? So those kinds of visionary that can think outside of the box and push the group beyond our current limitations. A charismatic leader is a very popular leader. I think that's where we know, but our hearts pull us in another direction. When you have someone who's pushing us in the right way, but they're not charismatic, versus someone who's charismatic but maybe is pushing us in the wrong way, we tend to gravitate toward the charismatic person. We want to be inspired, we want to be motivated, and it can be really nice to have a leader with a good smile, with a happy disposition. And sometimes,
In other words, he pushed me, but he was good about it.
Exactly. And they're the ones that inspire us to get up and move and do what we want to do. Those people who can give a really good speech, and then the whole church rallies behind them. Those are always the more popular. And a lot of times they're popular but not effective. They're good at motivating people, but they don't all. It's more about them. It's a lot of the focus goes to them, and it doesn't really accomplish as much as you would hope for. Administrator, I would call administrator is the person who's not really trying to get anywhere or accomplish anything more than just keep things from falling apart. So their whole focus, their whole goal is to keep things as they are, maintain status quo. The bureaucratic leader, they can't, it's very hierarchical. This is my position, this is your position, and I gotta make my people above me happy, and you gotta make me happy. It's very hierarchical in how they think, and very technical, red tape, and you gotta submit this form, and you gotta make these people happy, and you gotta pay this fine, and that's very. Why is it that so many governments function bureaucratically? It's because it's very organized and very I was going to say simple, but it's more organized, and it's more clear about the structure, about where you have to go, who you have to talk to, and so it kind of keeps things organized, but it's very dysfunctional, especially when the structure doesn't work as it's supposed to. I think we all love a pace-setting leader, the one who says, I want us to do this, and I'm going to show you by my example. So the person says, we got to work overtime because we got to double our production. Well, they're the ones that you see their light on the first, and you see their light on when you're going home. They're still in the office doing their job, because they're not just telling you to do something, they're also participating. They're setting the pace, and so they're saying, we can do it because I'm going to do it. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm showing you what to do through my example. And I think what Brother Pilgrim was saying is one of those situations. Adaptability. A situational leader is the most practical leader, because they learn to be all of those kinds of leaders. They can be charismatic, they can be bureaucratic, they can switch, and if the time comes where they need to be authoritative, they can say, this is what we need to do. If the time comes where they need to be more laissez-faire, they can say, okay, well, that's fine, because they learn to adapt to the circumstances. So those are situational leaders. And of course, what Jesus tells us, if you want to be the leader, you have to be the servant. But this is not just a biblical thing, because this kind of extends into many other areas. You have what's called the civil servant. their focus is on taking care of their constituents. It's focusing on serving the needs of their followers. They're not just in there to make decisions. They're in there to meet the needs of the people who they're responsible for. So there's a little bit of a difference between leading and managing. So managing is the executing of the vision to achieve the shared goal, to achieve the mission. So maybe the leadership is how we're going to work together, how we're going to operate, but the managing is as we're moving forward, how am I going to work with the people that are in that position? So obviously, an authoritative leader is probably also a micromanaging manager. So they're the ones that say, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what's going to happen. But then they say, okay, now you go and do it, but I don't want you to just do it. I want you to do it the way I want you to. I want you to do it when, and if you don't do it correctly, I'll do it for you. So you have the authoritative leader who becomes the micromanaging manager. You have the democratic leader who becomes the collaborative manager, who they put everything together. It's not so much about roles, it's not so much about functions, it's about sharing and working together. So the collaborative leader is about sharing responsibilities, working with everyone together. Laissez-faire would be a delegating manager, where they're not so controlling, they're not so concerned. A delegating manager would say, I trust you, you do it your way, and I'm going to let you accomplish it the way that is best for you. So that's why laissez-faire is not necessarily a bad way of leading, because it allows people the most freedom to work in their own way. Coaching style of managing is where maybe that's where you're talking about transformational leadership, where you're counseling and guiding. So you're not doing it for them like you would if you were micromanaging, because there is a good micromanager. It's like, well, I want this to be done a certain way, and I'm trying to help you, but let me just do it, and then we'll move forward. A coach is saying, I'm not going to do it for you. I'll give you counseling. I'll give you guidance. I'll motivate you. But at the end, I want you to do it. And so they're going to be there to kind of encourage and guide and motivate, give you some advice. Like if you come and say, oh, I don't know what to do about this situation. So one of the frustrating things I learned about coaching style of managing is that you're not allowed to tell them what to do. So a coach, I would call someone and say, hey, I'm having a hard time in my district. It's really frustrating. I don't like this or that. And they say, well, what are your options? And I'd say, I don't know what my options are. It's like, no, think about it. Let's think about it. So what could you do? It's like, well, I could do A, or I could do B, or I could do C. It's like, well, those are three options. What would make the most sense for your situation? What would make the best? What would hurt the most people? What would help the most people? And they kind of talk you through and help you make the decision. But at the end, they're kind of empowering you, motivating you, but you do it. You go and do it. And they stop short of actually telling you, this is what I want you to do and this is how I want you to do it. They say, let's talk it out. You do it. Of course, the servant focuses on meeting the team needs. So they're worried about, they're more worried about the people who are working than they are about the work. They're saying, how can I meet your need? How can I make sure you're not overworked? How can I make sure you're not stressed out? Making sure that they get their time off, making sure that they eat well. And it's like, I don't care just about the result. I'm also worried about the long-term health of the team. So what managers do that's important, they plan, organize, of course, managing is also leading. They're coordinating, controlling, trying to motivate, monitor progress, and make sure everything is okay. So in the sense, leading is to start the process, and managing is making sure that the process continues and goes well. But not every manager is a leader, because they're not setting the pace and helping people understand things. Sometimes they're just kind of making sure the wheels stay on the bus and that we keep going in the right direction. So I think a lot of people will classify as leader, sets the vision, sets the mission, kind of pulls the team together, and the manager keeps the team making progress. So the problem with, I would say, before I get to that, most of them kind of fall into two categories. Either the leader is the focus, the leader is the top, and it's all about how do we get the followers to follow the leader. And then there's some that are saying, well, the followers are the important, so how do you motivate the followers? How do you motivate? How do you guide? How do you direct the followers? But here's the problem with both of these situations. It's that the focus is always the leader. So this idea is, if you have a good leader, then we'll succeed. And if you have a bad leader, then you'll fail. Even if the leader is not motivating enough, if the leader is not serving enough, if the leader is not meeting the needs enough, then they'll fail. Or if the leader isn't being supported enough, or if they're not getting the followers to do what they want them to do, but the focus ends up being on the leader. And it's all about, is the leader good or bad? Are they accomplishing their goals? Are they getting people to follow them? What is the difference between leadership, as we talk about? I have about 100 books in my office on leadership, on getting people to do what you want them to do, on accomplishing the goal. There's a lot to be said about leadership. So what is the difference between leadership and Christian leadership? What would you all say is that one word difference? Christian, how does putting Christian in front of leadership change the definition of leadership?
Plus, we know who our leader is, the real leader.
Exactly. That's almost entirely the difference. So instead of it being about the relationship between the leader and the follower, Christian leadership is about our cooperation with God. God is the leader. God is the one who is setting the mission. He's the one that's casting the vision. He's the one that's leading us. The leader becomes more of the manager. It's more about, I'm conveying the message. I'm telling people what God is, how God is working and what God is doing. And the followers are not so much followers. Remember what Jesus says, I don't call you servants, I call you friends. You're not just doing what I'm telling you to do. We are working together as a team. The leader is not the higher up. The followers are not the lowly peasants. The leader and the members, it becomes the manager and the team members are equal and there's an importance to their relationship together, and there's an importance to their relationship with God. And ultimately, the focus of Christian leadership is about God, not about the leader or the follower. It's about how are we connected to God? How cooperative are we with God? Are we listening to God? Are we following His direction? Christian leadership is based on it basically comes down to our connection with God. Either we are connected with God and we succeed, or we're disconnected from God and we fail. So God isn't just receiving from us. He's not sitting on his throne saying, okay, you all, my peasants, do what I tell you to do, jump when I tell you to jump. God is serving us. He is taking care of our needs. He is concerned for us. He is serving us, but he's also leading us. He's setting the mission. He's putting the vision together. He's empowering us to do the work. So then the manager, or the leader, who is now the manager, because they are not the one that is setting the mission and making things happen. They're the ones that are depending on God for the mission, depending on God for the vision, and they're managing the work so that we can all move in that direction. They convey the mission from God. They convey the vision. They represent God for the team. They work with. They work as a spokesperson, an intermediary. They develop the mission and vision with the team, not to, but with. And that's important, because if the manager was in between God and the people, then the team members or the followers would have no part to play. It'd be basically, God told me and I'm telling you, and now you go and do it. But there's a collaborative mentality. There's not just about God telling Moses what to do, but God telling Moses and Moses working with the people and working in collaboration and going together and working as a team, to the point where Moses had to give responsibility to other elders and other leaders so that they could convey and work together as a team, instead of it just being God, the leader, and everyone else. Is everyone else, all of us together, connected to God, and God is the one who is leading, but he's not just receiving, he's also serving. He's collaborating with us. This is kind of the problem with a lot of our talking, where we kind of say, well, there's one mission, there's one vision, and it was sent from God. And the reality is that God is collaborating with us. He's not just telling us what to do. He's saying, these are things that I want to accomplish. How can we work together? How can we fit this in? He's not just sending a scroll down and telling us, thus says the Lord. He's saying, come, let us reason together. Let us work in collaboration. And that's why mission can change. That's why vision can change, because it's not just a commandment from God. It's a collaborative relational experience where we are working together. And obviously God is our leader. God is the one who is setting it, but he's not doing it apart from us. He's not just sending it to us. He's working in collaboration. So it's God, it's the leader, it's the team, all sitting together and working together, which is a beautiful thing. And I love the fact that no one person gets to receive the mission or the vision. If there's ever a person that says, this is the mission that God has given, and there's no debate and there's no discussion and we're just going to do it, be very afraid of that, because that person is not doing things God's way. If a person is telling you, that's it, there's no discussion, they're doing that. They're putting themselves in the place of God, because God doesn't give anything like that. He gives us commandments. He gives us things that he wants us to do, but he doesn't force us to abandon our own individual thinking, our own creativity. In fact, most of the time, he'll give pieces of the vision to different people in the team. and it'll be more about the manager bringing all of those pieces together, and then the team members kind of piecing that vision together, and it becomes this intimate relational process where God isn't just telling us what to do, he's bringing us together, and he's fitting all of those pieces together and creating a mission and a vision that all of us are part of. And it's interesting that he gives it in pieces, because it would be easy for us to mess it up. It's like, well, I don't like that piece. I don't like that piece. I don't want him to be part of the bigger piece. But it's as we're putting the pieces together that we get something greater than the sum of its parts. If I just took the vision and the mission that God gave me, and I just held on to it and said, this is what we're going to do, it's far less than even if we count all of our pieces separately. When we put them all together, something greater takes place that's even better than every individual piece apart from each other. So that's the difference in what God is calling for us to be. He's not calling for us to be in a hierarchy where it's all about who's in top and who's in the bottom. He's calling us to fit our pieces together and to connect with one another, to relate to one another, and to work this mission and vision as a group, not just as individuals. So the team members contribute to the vision, they contribute to the working, to the managing, to the process of getting this accomplished. And there's a respect for the manager, because it's interesting. God gets very, very, very angry when someone attacks the manager. So if Moses is not the one who's casting the vision, and he's not the one that's doing it, then he's not the leader, he's the manager. He's the one that's implementing the vision that God has. And they're very angry with Moses on many occasions, where they're like, you're not fit to be the leader, you don't deserve to be the leader. And it's interesting that even his own brother and sister are like, you shouldn't be the leader anymore. You should be fired. And God's response to them criticizing Moses is to give them leprosy. His sister has leprosy, and she ends up being cast out of the group. But if you read into what she was criticizing, she was upset because he was bringing in a wife that he married, and there's some theological debate on that. But it's not completely clear that it was unjustified. It sounds like something that if it happened today, we might get upset about, but the point was, God has a very important role for the people who are leading, and it's important for the team members to respect that ministry, even if that person is not necessarily the catalyst, the engine that pushes the train forward. But God has put them in that position, and he wants us to collaborate, not necessarily, he doesn't want the leader to have too much authority, too much power, but he doesn't want the leader to be disregarded and disrespected. He wants there to be a kind of a collaboration where the manager's kind of pulling things together and fitting things together, but each individual is also part of that process of putting things together and fitting it so that we're all doing it together. So there's a respect for the leader, a respect for the manager, but more importantly, it is all about our relation with God. So, to say, if I have a problem with my relationship with God, if I'm the leader, if I'm the manager, and I struggle with my relationship with God, I'm also going to struggle with my relationship with my my team members, the people who are working with me. If my team members, if I have a wonderful relationship with God, I could never say it's perfect. If a person has a wonderful relationship with God, and yet they're struggling and yet the team members have a hard time in their relationship with God, then that also causes friction with the working between the leader and the team members. It's only as the team members and the leader are working in harmony with God that we can work in harmony with one another, and that allows us to be in the optimal model for accomplishing the mission. So God creates the mission, God guides the vision, we receive the mission, we direct the vision, we direct the execution, the managing the execution. The team members receive the mission, contribute to the vision, and execute the vision. So what we see is very clear when we look at leadership models in the Old Testament, in the Bible. You have a situation where Moses and Joshua, the leaders, are following God's mission perfectly. Israel is kind of okay, but they're grumbly, but they at least do what they said. So there's a bit of a harmony between the leaders, God, and the people. When you get to Judges, you see that the leaders are following God's mission for the most part. So I think of someone like Samson. Was Samson a good judge? He was doing better than what they were doing apart from him. But anyways, so the leaders are kind of following God's mission, but Israel is doing its own thing. So that's where this says that everyone did according to their own sight. So basically, the leaders are in line with God, but everyone else is doing their own thing. And that's why Judges is such a hard book to read, with all the bad things a lot of the evil that takes place is because people are disregarding the leader or God. When you get to Kings, the leaders are following their mission, and Israel is disregarding God, but they're regarding the leader. And a lot of pain and suffering takes place in that situation as well. And then in Acts, you finally have it where the leaders and the members are united in mission and service through the Holy Spirit. And that's where you see God's true intention for how Christian leadership should look. So we're going to pause here, and we're going to continue at the next lesson. But I will give you all the homework for this week. Giving you away all the extra information. But our homework for this week, so it would be to read chapter 21 of Servants and Friends, to do the leadership self-assessment, see what kind of leadership style you have. There's only 3 categories. It's basically authoritative, democratic, or laissez-faire. But those are the basic boxes of leadership, because you could say the servant leadership is democratic, or the transformational leadership is democratic, and maybe the charismatic is more autocratic. It's more about the person, the individual. But anyways, read chapter 21. It's a summary of leadership in the Bible. Do the leadership self-assessment, and then also read Why Should We Clarify Our Mission. Since we're pausing before we finish the week, you can hold off on why we should clarify our mission. We'll save that until we finish this lesson. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm going to stop the recording, and we can have any questions or comments. thank you all, and please join us at our next class. Oh, and just in case you want to let me know that you have seen the lesson, the key phrase is 5 tango. So let me know that you watched it's a way for me to confirm that you watched the video afterwards. So thank you all. God bless, and hope to see you again soon.